All right, hello world. I am just getting some of this set up, making sure you guys can hear some fancy music. Let's bring that up a little bit, maybe not too much. But Paul Tranny here, just broadcasting live, and wanted to talk to you guys about 3D in Illustrator. So 3D from a very cool perspective. Awesome. So I can see myself. This is cool. Yeah, background's a little bit different behind me because I'm actually in Ottawa, Canada, and they are having their 150th anniversary. Canada is, and I'm actually in the capital. So have a creative jam here, but also amongst other anniversaries is Illustrator's. So Illustrator's having its 30th anniversary as well, which is pretty awesome considering just the the amount of the many years we've been using Illustrators, which is pretty awesome if you ask me. Okay, and to think, the thing that surprises me the most is the fact that the blend tool, let me just mute these tabs, has been around since Illustrator 88, which is pretty cool. All right. Sweet. All right, so I just had to open up comments. Hello, Portugal in the house. Let's do this. Let's do some 30. Let's do some 30, which is sounds very much like 3D, if you will. 3D, boom, right? 30. You guys get it, right? But again, Illustrator 30th. This is typically what I would do. It's super easy to take any element, whether it's some text or an image or icon or whatever, and then turn it into 3D. So I could take this text, go up here to Effect, 3D, and there's three different things we can do. So let me kind of zoom in on that. You can do an extrude and bevel, a revolve, and then a rotate. Ada, good to see you. Vittorio, just wondering where you guys are from. Again, I'm in here in Ottawa, looking at the beautiful spring day. Actually, no, it's ice cold out there, guys. Who are we kidding? But curious as to where you guys are from, because I think it's always fun. Portugal in the house. So these are sort of the different three different sort of 3D effects that you can do, but there's also a 3D perspective tool that you could use as well. But I find these three are probably the most easy to use, but you're like, what would I use that for? And I want to take you through that as well. I'm going to go into extrude and bevel. Again, any element selected. Boom. North Carolina in the house. Good to see you. Armenia, cool. Kurdistan, this is so fun. Awesome. Australia, hopefully that's what you mean by AU, Jesse. You never know. Colombia, favorite place in the world. All right, so you won't see anything initially. You click preview. Obviously, you start to see that preview of this text, okay? And you could start to dial in these numbers, which it's good to say, hey, 45-degree angle. And then you could hit tab to commit that. But you could see, as I adjust, say, 45-degree angles like so. Let me actually just grab, and I find it easier just to actually grab this and rotate it around. Let me just hit cancel, because I want to be able to just go into extrude and bevel like that. Preview it. There we go. So it's easier to see since now I don't have the text selected. It's easier to see it now. But I can rotate it this way just by grabbing the cube and rotating it. And then I can start to zero out these values just to, sort of have this perfect isometric look. And notice how there's not very much there's not a deep perspective. This is actually isometric, so it's like a perfect sort of 3D cube is what's going on here. Okay, from there I can start to increase the extrude depth because I want to make this a little bit more interesting. Something kind of like that looks better. Okay, Belgium in the house. Deether, good to see you, man. What's up, Lorenzo and Mohammed from Jordan? Awesome. So this is pretty cool. It already does this shading, right? So that's your next question, is like, how do I manipulate this shading? And really, this is 3D 101, by the way. You start here and then you dive into it even more. And let's make sure. All right. So yes. checking this out, I'm going to dive into this more. Obviously plastic shading, but as you kind of click through these, you can go into sort of a diffuse shading, which should take into consideration some light. You can say no shading, and you can start to see the value of this just as a way to sort of knock out a shape. That's what no shading does, right? Kind of knocks it out and looks cool. And then wireframe, right? So you've seen this look. This is a certain style. So, and just to answer, Caro, to answer your question, hopefully this is like beginner style stuff. But all I did is I just went to 3D extrude and bevel based on some text, and now I have a cool wireframe look for it that I can then render out and turn into vectors, okay? But this is already looking pretty darn good, and again, all I did is change these different surfaces. But we can go back to plastic shading. If you twirl down into more options, excuse me, you could start to see all the different possibilities that you have for that lighting, because you're like, where is that light coming from, and how can I change it? And by diving into that, you can see obviously the intensity is taken up all the way, but if you even bring up the ambient light, you'll see that it kind of gives you that same effect as blowing it out. Okay, so again, take that down. I can adjust this point right here, so I don't have to manipulate any of the angles. I could just actually adjust just like that. Obviously, I'm going to get this 3D. Guess what, Gina? This looks like super... this actually isn't bad, but it kind of reminds me of the 90s, like the late 90s style, okay? Yes, you can play with the colors. We can get into that. I can add more lights. In fact, you can see the shading color. If we wanted to talk about the shading color, this is one way of sort of tinting this a certain look. So I can go in here and change it from this red to a teal, which is the background. All right, we'll change it to a teal color, sort of medium teal, and you get obviously what you see here, okay? Notice right over here is you could actually add a new light, okay? So you can get really pretty intense in here. Adding this new light, typically you do have two lighting sources, by the way, but this second one I'll actually change to red, okay? And we'll start to see how this interacts one with the other as I click on that one and move this one over. Let's take this second one, take that lighting down. Let's take down some of this intensity of this one. This one almost like overpowers the second one. So that's why I'm just trying to mix these two with varying degrees of success. It's actually not actually, you know what? I think I need to even move this one on top. But in general, those are my two lighting sources, and I was actually hoping to tint one side over the other, but I think I really have to take this one down a lot. Let's take this down to almost like 0 and see what happens. Okay. The nice thing is that a lot of this, in fact, let's go into diffuse shading. Nope. This works like any other 3D program, quite frankly, in terms of sort of the lighting and everything. Oh, did I actually change the wrong color? Oops. Let's go back. And just like that. Okay, so you guys get the idea there, okay? Because I actually want to go beyond this, because there's so much more I want to cover that goes beyond even what you can do right in here, because this is pretty straightforward. You guys should get this. Now, what you can do, even going beyond this, is you can start to map art to the different sides. So right down here at the bottom, in fact, let me show fewer options, and I'm going to show you this as well, map art. So let's zoom in on that. You guys see that right here? This is the latest version of Illustrator, Gianfranco, just so you know. You can make like metal-like textures. You could do that a couple different ways, Julie. So you can map art. You can actually map a, oops. Oh, darn it. I meant to escape out of this zoom effect, and I actually exited out of the, let's go back in here. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Zoop. Turn on preview. That's the key thing you need to do. Let me get this back to where I wanted it to be. But you could actually have a any sort of texture, whether it's a metallic or anything, and you can map it to the different sides, and that's what map art does. As I select map art, you could see this is highlighting the front of the 3. So see that? It says, hey, you know what? I'm going to map whatever image I have mapped to the front of the 3. All right? And from there, if I twirl this down, you can see what's in here is like, well, what would I map to it? It has to be a symbol, right, in your library for this file, okay? So taking a look at that, you could see all these different files that I have. I can go for this checker pattern, for instance, selecting that, and it's doing the obvious. Okay, so I have that checker pattern right in there. Okay, so I can do a scale to fit. That's actually looking pretty good, but what about the other sides? Well, I can start to click through. Next surface, click. Oh, it highlights the back, right? I don't need to worry about the back. What about this side? Well, I can't really see any of those sides. I'm really only focusing on the sides that I can see, and then I can start to map them to that checker pattern right there, okay? That inside I don't need to worry about. Mapping that checker, boom, right? This is huge being able to do this, seeing as it doesn't require me to have a 3D program, but this is exactly the way a 3D program would work. It will in a very similar fashion. Okay, so just mapping this along the way. You guys get the idea. This top part, and I can adjust this, but I actually want to go beyond this because I can show you guys easier ways to do this type of thing. This gets kind of, I guess, somewhat complex in terms of sort of mapping all these sides. Kind of takes some time, as you can see, but you guys get the idea there. Okay, clicking OK. You can see the shading. I want to actually go beyond that as well if I could. All right, Jose, let's, can you, Paul says, can you map one symbol to all surfaces at once? I wish we could. I wish we could, Paul. Like, I would actually love to do that, but you cannot. I like the sort of control you have, but you have to go through all these, again, sort of one at a time. All right? Okay, clicking OK, sure. This is sort of the start of something. I can play with some additional things. I'm just playing with soft light and hard light and darken because I might want to just kind of take on the tint of that particular background is what I'm doing there, and there's soft light. All right, so let's go beyond that because I want to actually make this even simpler for you because this was like a lot of work, and I'm sorry I didn't finish all the sides. I could do that later, but I want to be mindful of your time. But let's kind of take this to the next level. It's like, what happened? Well, you know what I did is I actually just took this item, by the way, and I made this into a symbol. So if I open up my symbols panel, you'll see it right in here. So I actually just took this, and if you guys aren't aware, if you hold down the Alt key and drag, let's delete that. Alt key, Shift, drag it over till it snaps into place, and then you can just do a Command D, right, to duplicate and make that texture, right? So that's how easy that was done. Command D, did everything you needed to do, and that's how I've made this symbol. But I want to do something really cool with the symbol that I've just made, okay? So with this pattern, sorry Daniel, I'm sorry we're doing them on Mondays. I don't know how we got into this habit. It seemed like a day that would work for everyone, but yeah, we try to do this every Monday. Let's do something else, because now that I have this pattern, I'm going to do something actually what I think is pretty cool. I'm going to draw a line. Okay, let's just draw out a line that's going to be a black line just by zooming out some as well. Right, click, 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 right? There's my line, right? And I could always thicken it up so you guys can see it. But now check this out. Based on this line, I actually want to sort of do a 3D lathe to it. All right. So if I wanted to make like a vase or a vortex, check this out. I could do that. Going into effect, into 3D. I've already talked about 3D extrude and bevel. I've already talked about that. But let's go into that next one, which would be revolve. Okay. So I'm going to revolve now. Selecting revolve. Of that one line, selecting preview, you could see what it's done. Kind of made it revolve around that edge. It's black because my line is black. I probably want to fix that. Okay, but I can even go beyond that, because for this black line that I'm going to turn white, I can go into 3D revolve. Let's do this not from the left edge, but from the right edge. So click, and now I've made this cool bowl, essentially, is what I've made, which I'm going to make this look even cooler. So yeah, Dawkins, you cannot output to STL just because you're actually not, you're making 3D, but it's really a flat image of a 3D item. Okay, so it's not actually true 3D. This is your gateway drug into 3D for like other apps. Okay, but that's what I've done, is kind of made it look, or turned it into a bowl that could be any shape, and again, a simple line. Going into the same map art, I can select the checker pattern. Oops. Yeah, checker pattern. But now I need to find the correct side again. Boop. Ooh, that looks like it's it. Going to that same checker pattern. Let's scale to fit. Boop. Just like that. Oh, interesting how it made it like that. Scale to fit. Just like that. It looks like it actually made this other side too. Boop. Let's select that. Scale to fit. That's that outside. How interesting. Let's kind of peer into that a little more. And click OK, just like that. See how it doesn't quite match up? That's just a matter of going into, and your tendency will be to go back into 3D revolve when you don't want to do that, because what it's going to do is it's going to apply that effect again. You instead want to go into the appearance panel right over here. You could see you want to select 3D revolve from the appearance panel because you want to modify what's currently there. So again, you'll turn that on. You can see it doesn't quite match up. Go back into map art, which should be the second one right here, and make sure it actually stretches all the way over. So I just need to grab this. My pattern is not bingo, so I need to adjust this some more, but my pattern actually is not, there's like a little bit extra space, but I just would probably need to tweak this. The good thing is actually I could resize this dialog. Hey, how about that, huh? That made it much better. Alright, let's move this over. And now it matches up on that edge. So I just had a little gap there, and now that looks like a lot better. So typically what I would do is I would have this sort of pattern like this sort of vortex made from a 3D line that I just did a rotate for, and now I get something much more usable and interesting that I can work with. And from here I can treat it the way I'd treat anything else, which, you know, might mean sort of putting a clipping mask on it, just like that, selecting those two, selecting these, doing a clipping mask. Really, I'm... Wait for it. I'm moving too fast. Clipping masks, not compound path. Boom. There you have, again, what I kind of wanted in this case, to make what I want in this case. So from there, I'd probably start to change the different, say, overlay effect, something like that, to get me what I want. Cool. Easy enough, guys. Again, a pretty simple vortex. The last one I will review is this rotate capability. Okay, so rotate is probably going to be like the most boring of all of them, is what you're going to think. You're like, oh, why would I ever want to do that? And I'll show you why you'd want to do that. Because this rotate, so if I come in here, again, 30 for our 30th, crank up the size of this to 150, 250, even larger. There we go. Okay, cool. Taking this, I'm going to turn this into white, so we're going to be able to make it look a little bit better for the style I'm going for. But from here, if you go into the 3D, this is going to give you specific capabilities to rotate this around. Okay, so if I turn this in, I actually want this to rotate around the center by 45 degrees. Okay, previewing that, see what it does, rotates it by 45 degrees. I can also grab each one of these and adjust numerically, but this is much easier to work with than, say, for instance, to use skew, right? So now that I have these specific numbers, I can click OK. Now I have this sort of isometric view still of that, going up that side view, and I can start to integrate it into a scene like this. But you can see actually using the 3D rotate, you're able to sort of put something together like this, where you can come in and say, hey, you know what? I want to map this on the side of a building. There's that 30, or integrated into this scene, since I know everything else has this same sort of rotation value, right? So I'm dropping that. If I could select it, dropping that, like in the background or wherever I want to put it. Okay. Same thing. So for this, guys, you might be wondering where I got this illustration, by the way. If I go to File, New, it's actually a free template. Again, that has 3D in it already. It's part of this depth series, but I encourage you to check out all these templates. I think I got it from Art and Illustration. If you scroll down, you can see the Saturn and Zoo characters, and this happens to be the depth series, right, that I'm opening up right now. All right. Are these feature available in CS6? Yes, they are. The 3D stuff is. And then, oh, are you guys interested in the music? Is that what I'm hearing? Do you guys like the music? Because it is just the YouTube, non-licensed, copyright-free music from Jingle Punks in this case, which sounds like it's probably, yeah. All right, cool. I've gone for about 25 minutes. And again, this is not a new feature. This is stuff that actually has been in Illustrator for a while that I want to make sure you guys are aware of to do cool effects. And this is just like one example that did not take long at all. And it's not a plugin either, right? Elevator Classics, oh yes. Yeah, I don't even have my headphones plugged in, so I actually do not know what's playing. Let me do one more thing, by the way. One more thing, and I will leave you with this. Again, this graphic still needs work. It all needs work. You know, I made that pattern. What else did I make? I have all these other patterns that I'm dealing with that I was going to take. And again, I'm just mapping these textures, by the way, onto 3D shapes and giving them that 3D vortex look, which I absolutely love, you know, having it, you know, look like that. And all it is this simple checkered pattern right here that I got from Adobe stock. So it's like with one line and then just doing a lathe or a rotate can just kind of give you some awesome results. Let's do some more things with these simple textures right here as I turn this off. Okay, so check this out. Let me do this for you guys. Ready? Coming right over here, you have perspective tools. So this is similar to 3D as well. I'm going to turn on the perspective grid tool, right, that I can start to adjust or extend out. If I grab this centerpiece, I can start to move this grid. But in general, I have this perspective that I can manipulate, right? And what I can do with this perspective grid is start to map things, say, onto like a side of a building, for instance, okay? And notice how it gives me this right up here. This is pretty important because it's saying, hey, I'm going to work on this side that's highlighted. Or I could say, hey, you know what? I want to work on this side that's highlighted, okay? So this is what I want to do. I want to actually select the, let's select the right side since it's easier to see. Let's grab any one of these textures. Let's take these square textures, copying it. Again, with this side selected, right here, I can do a paste. Let's just do an edit paste. There we go. So I did a paste, And since I have that side selected, it actually pastes it into that sort of perspective area, right? So now I have that checkered wall, if you will, okay? I can do the same thing again. I'm going to select the blue side, and I kind of need to move this other stuff over so you can see. And dropping it into place on this side. Wait for it. There we go. It's so small, it was kind of hard to grab it. So I'm actually using right over here, you could see we have two tools that you have. You have the perspective grid tool, which allows me to create the grid, and the perspective selection tool, which will bring that into this perspective world, if you will. Okay, so that's actually what I'm using to move this around. But you can see I now have this cube. It's everything that I'd expect. If you want to turn that off, by the way, you can go down in here and you can say, hey, you know what, hide grid, just like that. And creating something like this, which would be much more difficult if you're just pushing around vectors, okay? Misha, I did not create all these textures, actually. I got these from Adobe Stock. So if you're interested, if you open up your libraries panel right here, search Adobe Stock. I searched for like patterns, right? And it returns these results from Adobe Stock. And if I actually want vectors, I can say, hey, you know, show me the vector patterns that are on Adobe Stock. And you can start to see this one alone has a set of 6 patterns for like 1 credit. So again, this is where I'm pretty sure where I got those patterns from. And you get the idea. So that's typically what I will use because it beats, you know, making them myself. But also if you want free stuff, if you go into your symbol libraries, I know you can't see that because that's scrolling off of the screen, but I'm opening up the symbol libraries. Let's see if there's a pattern. There are no patterns. Anyway, so the only other place where there's free stuff is under symbol libraries, just so you know, where you can find some flowers and some retro, some primitive stuff, that sort of thing, but I typically use Adobe Stock. Alright guys, that's all I have for you. So the perspective line, and again, this goes for anything. If I wanted to like take any graphic, let me just do this one more time because I want to make sure I'm answering all your questions. Anything that I wanted to put on the, you know, side of this in perspective, even if I have this globe, let's just drag this globe out. Okay, let's make sure I'm going to show my grid. I'm taking this perspective selection tool, and all I need to do is use my perspective selection tool to select that flat graphic, and now it, boom, says, hey, you know what? I'm now in perspective. I'm in this sort of this 2 grid perspective area, and now I can drop that right in there. Okay, but all I did is pasted it in and then used my perspective selection tool to drag it into this new perspective world. Okay, easy enough. Cool, guys. There's probably about 1,000 other things that I could probably show you. Like 3D is so cool. Honestly, Illustrator gives me like total flexibility to pretty much do whatever I want. And the cool thing is honestly, even this perspective grid, it's actually available in at least CS6, if not like CS5. So it's been around a little while, but that's why you guys are joining me here today, so you can learn things, hopefully, that you may or may not already have. So, yeah, exactly. Arsalan, I love doing this. Super fun, guys. I mean, who doesn't love everything you do? You should really like, this is what we do for fun, and tinker, hopefully you get it. 3D, we could even get into more 3D later on, eventually rendering this stuff out. The cool thing is it's all vectors, so you can you know, have it printed out on a huge building and all that fun stuff. That's why I like Illustrator. So thanks so much for watching, guys, The Illustrator is not free, to answer your question. You know, it does cost money because we need to pay the programmers who make it. But yeah, that's the deal. And we'll probably be back next week on Monday. And yes, I think Krista Kaiser as well. Give her a shout out because she actually runs this sort of channel and Illustrator on the back end. So tell Krista thank you as well for putting these things together. So try out the perspective grid, use the 3D items. It's going to be your best friend when you get into this stuff. But thanks so much for watching, guys. And we will see you soon. See you next week. And be kind to one another, huh? What a concept.